All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Ojai Unified School District Board meeting. I'd like to invite you to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. I am very much looking forward to tonight. We have a lot of special guests here, so we'll get to that in a few minutes. In the meantime, we need to approve our agenda, and I don't believe there are any emergency modifications.
There's none.
Great. So if we can have a motion to approve the agenda as it is.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
One second.
All in favor? Aye. Great. And then the approval of our minutes from the last meeting. Are there any comments or changes?
No.
Great. If we could have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. And then we have our student representative report. Zoe?
Hi, everybody. Okay, so we just had our spring rally. It was on May 1st, Friday, May 1st. And we honored our spring sports and we recognized arts programs. And we usually don't do that, so it's kind of cool. We had little videos for arts and we had competitions and stuff. And then we had a spring sports video, and then we also recognized a wrestler, Michaela Miles. She earned all-state honors. And then also our 4x800 reeling team, and I'm pretty sure we all know about them. We had prom on Saturday, May 2nd. It was at Limonera Ranch in Santa Paula. The theme was Moonlight in the Orchards, and it was completely outdoors, so it was kind of cool. It was in the lemon field, and I heard it was pretty cool. All profits from prom go to next year's Safe and Sober grad night, so that's kind of one of the reasons. But it's a big deal. We had our blood drive today, and we had approximately 40 students and staff members participate in that. It was a little bit below our goal, but it was pretty good. And up next thing on the agenda is the senior rally. And that's the rally where all the seniors sit on the floor and everyone kind of shifts over, and then we invite the 8th graders from the Tillahaw to come sit in the 9th grade section. And they get it's kind of like welcome to Nordhoff. And that's pretty much
When does that happen?
On, I don't know the date. It's,
Crazy, what is
I think
it?
it's
Friday, June it's the same day as our promotion dance in the morning. I believe that's the day before, Friday, June 5th.
So just before we get off your report, so speaking of the rally, which was one of the better ones, I have to say, I just noticed a third of the 4 legs just walked in the door. Do we have, Ed, do we have the fourth leg?
He's down in Ventura trying to get back. He had a project.
Okay, well, if he's quick enough, he'll get here. Anyhow, apart from that, I just have to say, as you know, I've been around the block here a few times when it comes to high school rallies, years, etc. And I'm going to tell you unequivocally, the Nordhoff pep rallies are by far the best. And it's not just the spirit, which is really good, but Bronwyn and Greg come up with these off-the-wall kinds of things, and I won't even go into all the ones I've seen. But I have to say I was very disappointed in our 4x800 relay because they were outwalked. They were outwalked by some older people, as in faculty. Now, it wasn't.
They didn't follow the script.
Because I was in Dr. Bayless's office when the script was discussed with you, and you guys were not supposed to lose.
But they did.
But you did. And, anyway, it was fun. It was fun to watch. All 4 of the faculty participants, all 4 of you guys, you were good sports, and we'll have a chance to say all kinds of great things about you. But it was great that you participated. That was cool. And the rally, I just want to really speak more about the rally. because it's fun, it's creative, it's different every time. And this one was filled with performing arts, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was really good. Yeah, it was really good.
All right, well, wonderful, thanks a lot. We're really happy to receive your report, and you're welcome to stay or go however you...
Well, the whole family's here, so you might...
I'll stay for a while.
Good. All right, yeah, you might want to be supportive.
We're doing a lot of that tonight.
So, public comments. If anyone would like to...
No sheets yet.
Okay, we have sheets to fill out if you want to say anything more, but we've got lots to say as it is. So moving on, there's something about 4 by 800 meter something. We are so excited. The first time I saw you guys was on a YouTube video, and it was really hard for me to keep track because you kept lapping the other teams.
That was on that indoor...
On the indoor track.
Yeah.
So I just want to say congratulations, but we all want to do that. I think as an introduction, I think, Greg, were you planning to say something?
I'm just going to speak.
So why don't you come up, and then if you could introduce our coach and have him say a few words. And as a board, this is our recognition time, and we've never done this before, but it's always been kind of awkward how we've done it. This may be even more awkward. But I think what we'd like to do is have the board come up in front and then have whoever we're honoring come in front of us.
Okay.
So everyone in TV land can see them. And then hear your comments.
Our millions of live viewers, yes.
Exactly. We don't want to disappoint the...
Do you want us all with you now?
Yeah, let's all come up here. And then the team.
All right, the team.
Come on up.
I'm going to say only a brief sentence, and that is to introduce our fantastic coach, Ed Tallow. And look, these guys, I see them out of my window. My window points to the track. And so after school, all I do is try to concentrate on my work, but most of the time I sit and watch you guys practice, which I'm not a track guy myself, but it's incredible to see how much dedication, technique, training, it's not just, oh, you just got to be in good shape and run as fast as you can. It's not that simple. So I want to have Ed briefly introduce the team.
And before you say that, why don't you guys come up here?
They also brought the
bring that flag. And just point it forward so everyone at home can see that.
So I'm not going to say a lot because I say a lot to these guys, but what is really special about them is that at the beginning, when we first cooked up this idea, I told them that this was not my relay, that this was their relay, that I had experienced this same experience they had a lot of years ago, and that it was their choice to do this or not to do it. And at any point, if it became too cumbersome, or if one or all of them didn't want to do it, that we would stop and there would be no judgment about it and there would be no critical. They took it upon themselves to take this thing beyond where I could have imagined, because we went into what is, they went into what is the most intense track experience in the country and won it. So that's all I can say. I'm really proud of them, and I think that for all four of them, Varian included, there's a bright future, and I hope this had a small effect on it. So,
Why don't you come up here? We want to present you with the plaque.
Thank you.
Humility counts for so much.
Well,
I can't even imagine what it takes to help these young men reach those heights.
it was them. It was not as much me as it was
And I
them.
know all of our board members would love to congratulate you, so why don't you come around here?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can just have everything out there. Oh, God, we do that.
You guys are awesome.
Congratulations. Can we announce their names?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Yeah.
Elijah Balderas.
So Elijah and then
Cameron.
Great, I've got your plaque right here. It worked out. And I feel bad. I've just seen you as a blur. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And
Congratulations. Thank you.
And Landis, fantastic. Congratulations. Wonderful. You guys are awesome. We're just really excited to have you here with us.
And I would like to say, because I saw all of you guys running, except Landis, I don't think you did, with Roadrunners. And the growth there, and you know, I had a son who ran a relay with you, Ed, and I know you don't like to take things on as a coach and take praise, but I know that it was you who helped them find themselves and find that piece of themselves that could compete, that could rise to that level. And they couldn't have done that alone. So although they made those steps, your encouragement really helped them find that. And I appreciate that a lot. And you guys did it. And you will always have that. And forever that will be hanging somewhere. That watch will be somewhere special. And I want us to recognize that. So
Hey, Jane, we sort of like the idea that teachers and coaches actually matter. It's like who we are. You know?
If I could just add briefly, you know, I followed, I also know Ed, and our kids did Roadrunners, and I've watched Cameron from, you know, several years ago. And one of the awesome things about this year, for me, you know, I remember seeing you guys at Costco. I think it was back in the fall, and you were getting all these special supplies. The awesome thing about it is, like, from the beginning, you guys were like a family, and you never shied away from saying, you never said we're going to do it, but you also didn't do what most people do, which is say, you know, we probably can't do it. You said, we might do it, and we're getting closer and closer and closer. And the thing that occurred to me on the day of was how easy it would have been for one of you guys to what's her name, you know, the Mary Decker tab, you know, when it, you know, fall off to the side, get run over, you know, just don't have your best day. To put it all together under that pressure and deliver, you guys we're blown away. As a group.
I'll just say one thing, and I don't know them as these people do, because I didn't have kids running Roadrunners. They were running some other state. But I grew up in the East Coast, and you know, the Penn Relays was the big thing. Like you said, Ed, it is the pinnacle of high school. I remember it being the pinnacle of high school and collegiate, you know, competition in all levels, running and some other events too. But you know, basically, it was the top of the heap. And
if I might add, it's gotten even better because the Jamaicans come up 12,000 strong now. Yeah, it's amazing what's happened at Penn Relays.
Those teams.
Yes.
Those teams.
Yeah, but the fans too, they come up in mass, you know, and fill the stadiums.
I felt like you were running at Oregon, huh?
That's fantastic. Well, from national class, world class competing, and now to our volunteers, who we think of as world-class volunteers.
There you go. Nice segue. Good move. Very smooth, very smooth.
I'm not a famous TV actor, but I'm...
Very smooth.
Great. So we're going to be honoring our volunteers. The way we'll plan to do this, if we can have the person we're honoring come up here and have the principal come up and talk about them. And we're going to start with Yolanda Flores.
Stillhart Junior High School benefits from volunteerism of several generous people. Of those, one person stands out this school year, and that is Mrs. Yolanda Flores. Yolanda's been a force for good in Otillaha. From being a charter member of COPA, which is our ELAC group, serving on both the school site council, which was a large task in and of itself, being a member of our PTO, helping to plan and organize our 8th grade promotion dance, and volunteering for our spring celebration. Yolanda has been and continues to be a constant presence at Matilaha. One notable example of her can-do spirit comes to my mind. This last fall, we had just completed a very large renovation in our new fitness center. Beautiful facility that echoed because there was really nothing in there yet. And Yolanda found out that we needed some equipment. So she set to work talking with Rotary of Ojai, and before long we had an $8,000 grant, and we have purchased some really first-class equipment in the fitness center. And we're so proud of her and so thankful for her energy, again, her can-do spirit. And this is coming up in a couple of weeks, our spring celebration on the 21st. We're going to have our official grand opening. And Yolanda will be there. She's been working with Mr. Roberts to plan that event. Yolanda has made a real difference at Matilaha Junior High School. And having worked with her over the past year, I've enjoyed the opportunity to work with not only a positive, tireless, and dedicated parent, but also someone with a real compassionate heart. And everything she does at Matilaha, she works to nurture a positive learning environment for our students and our staff. So, Mrs. Flores, we thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. This is good.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Next is Nikki Sage from Miners Oaks.
Nikki is probably volunteering somewhere at the moment, so.
We'll get it on record.
Do you want me to say anything or present it to her later? Or?
Please, well, yeah,
Okay.
please tell us.
Okay.
Or you know what, if you'd rather do it with Vicki here, you can do it on June 2nd. Because if you want to come back to the June board meeting, she can come back.
You want me to try that?
If you'd rather have her here, listen.
I'd like to acknowledge her publicly,
Then
so let's try
wait.
that.
Okay, good.
Shall we-
We have one to do on June 2nd. Anyway.
Okay, all right.
We'll do that. Thank you. Okay, and Inga Patch from Miramonte.
Okay. Meet Inga. This is Inga. You want to hold that for me? Okay, so Inga, here. Inga is our Volunteer of the Year. You might recognize her last name, Patch, since her daughter Lisa Patch is a teacher in our district at Miramonte. Inga prefers to be behind the scenes. She is not big on talking in front of groups or being the center of attention. Coming here would have been extremely uncomfortable for her. So she's not here, but we have this wonderful picture. Her daughter would have been here as well, but she's headed off to Catalina tomorrow morning with 56 graders. So she said, really, do I have to go? And I said, no, you don't have to go. We'll talk about your mom. So these are two pictures of Inga. Inga retired after 30 years as assistant controller and head accountant with the House of Fabrics. Some of you are old enough to remember House of Fabrics. She's been retired for 20 years and has been coming up and helping us at Miramonte off and on for the last 12 years. She lives in North Hollywood. She drives approximately 75 miles one way to come help us. She spends the entire day at the school when she's there to volunteer. Her times are typically spent making copies, checking in papers, working on upcoming projects, helping with special days like our upcoming Greek Day, and anything concerning money, counting money when we do fundraisers and rolling coins and that kind of thing. She enjoys helping other upper grade teachers as well with copying and putting together projects. She's helped out in the office preparing kindergarten enrollment forms and registration packets. She also spends a week before school helping our teachers get their classrooms ready. And at the end of the year, she spends a little bit of time helping us close everything up. She's a hard worker, she's accurate, and she requires minimal direction. She's very proud of that. The upper grade teachers love it when she comes to help in our school. And of course, Miss Patch, her daughter, loves having her mother volunteer. So, thank you. And I will make sure that she gets this. Thank you.
Thanks. And Linda Jordan from Nordon.
All right, the first time I met Linda, I was giving a presentation to some seniors, I believe, in the library, and I don't know if you remember what you told me. At the very end, you came up to me and said, I'm Linda Jordan. I'd love to be your campaign manager if you ever run for office. I went home, I told my wife,
Hey, Greg, she told me the same thing.
I said, for my very unlikely future run of public office, I've already secured a campaign officer. So my wife laughed at me. But it's that kind of positivity and enthusiasm that was so contagious for the Measure J campaign, which she played a key role in, and that's one of the reasons why I think that the community responded the way that they did. We could probably take all those positive votes and somehow trace them, many of them, back to Linda. And I know you guys know that to be true because you've seen her in so many capacities with the Measure J campaign. I'm going to say one other thing about Linda. Kim Hoy and I, the other assistant principal for Nordhoff, have talked for many years about developing an alumni network. And we've done nothing about it because it's just one of those future projects we'd love to be able to do, we just don't have time to do. At the beginning of this year, Kim and I made a little pinky promise that we would take at least the first step towards that this year. We would not let graduation happen before that first step. So about April, we've done nothing. And I was getting word that I was going to have to break the first ever pinky promise in my life. And in walks Ashley and Linda into my office. They say, we really want to help develop an alumni network. And I thought, not only are you really positive and incredibly motivating, but you have great timing because now I can keep my promise and not do a whole lot of work. And what a better way to keep a promise. So she just has a great sense of what needs are, and she has a willingness to fulfill them. And maybe one of the best things is she brings along with her Zoe, who also has the flair for volunteerism, because we have two things that we've never had before at Nordhoff as a result of Zoe. So I want to tell you that we pass this on. We have the first ever Big Brother and Big Sister freshman mentoring program, all generated by her and her dynamic duo cohort, Miss Lugatoff, who's Suzanne's here somewhere. Yes. Danielle. And we had the first ever pre-prom formal dance instruction, and which is something that she helped coordinate as well. So we have two amazing new traditions as a result of the Jordan family, but thank you so much. And I know that there's families there. Congratulations. Sam, look forward to having you. Keep your mom in the game for as long as possible, so thank you so much.
Stay up here.
Well, I am actually going to invite Dave Munson up, who's going to talk about the Nordhoff Furniture Angel.
Bob Boy.
Bob Boy, come on out. Okay, so apparently,
we all know him for that.
all right, affectionately known as the Furniture Angel, Bob has helped us take our 1970s decor into the 21st century. But it's much more than that. You know, Bob has not only found us a way to modernize our facilities, but he's actually gone and talked to our teachers. So he's done some legwork to find out what they need. So he has done, some extra work to find out and talk to all the teachers. What is it that you need that will make your job easier? And he's done a great job of convincing businesses, instead of selling and making some money off it, to donate it to us. And then on top of that, he brings his guys in and delivers the stuff, and on top of that, help us get this stuff set up. So it's not just, hey, here's the furniture, enjoy it. No, he has helped us set up, and if you come to our facility, you'll see our library has this state-of-the-art conference table, some brand new furniture in there that the kids find extremely comfortable. It's very welcoming. The classrooms are nicer. Administration as well. We benefited from, his generosity. But he's also just an all-around great guy who helps in athletics. Like Linda, he just brings this positive energy, and we are just grateful that we have him on our campus now. So, Bob, thank you very much.
Hey Dave, just a couple of quick addenda. One, I love high school football, as you know, and I'm sitting on the sideline And the first time I met Bob, I said, "Who is that really tall ball boy?" He's running up and down. He turns around. He looks like he's old, like I am. And the other thing is, you didn't happen to mention he's got some really, really good athletes. His son, really good athletes who made huge contributions. Still making huge contributions to the Nordoff athletic program. It's been great to watch them, and I just second everything they said about it. But the furniture piece is nice, but it's the other part of what you do and who you are that is really, I think, a big, big part of what Nordoff is.
Glad to.
You bet.
And I appreciate his coaching in class.
But he does coach too.
Whitney Hartman, San Antonio.
So I have the pleasure of speaking about Whitney Hartman, who happens to be the San Antonio School PTO president. And she didn't get there by a direct route of saying, I want to do that, I want to do that. She got there because people kept going to her to get things done. And she just kind of merged into that. Oh yes, with one of her right arms, the other right arm is sitting back there, Josephine. She has a wonderful family, and they'll be introduced in just a moment, but Whitney has stepped in where others feared to tread, and has done a phenomenal job. She's that positive energy that everybody keeps mentioning, she's full of it, and she just helps things happen on campus. One comment that somebody made about her was, she keeps us afloat, and we love her, and that is definitely true, campus-wide. She's been responsible for all of our fundraising efforts, or spearheading them at least. The Spirit Drive, we are now getting better items for our Spirit Wear on campus. She's handled the yearbook, she's done the Fall Festival, Skating Plus, and she just does a number of things, but she's a very accomplished photographer, and so she puts that to use at every turn with the yearbook. We're taking all campus photos and just capturing life at San Antonio. So Whitney, thank you so much for all the hard work that you've done. I really appreciate it. If you can take a moment to acknowledge your family, can you point them out?
That's Martin Hartman, that's my husband, and Josephine, she's in 4th grade, and this is Conrad.
And Whitney took the photographs of the board and actually made me look presentable. You actually made me look presentable. So that's great. And Teresa, do you want to stay up here? Rhonda Fogata from Summit.
Not that you have to be the PTO president to be honored as Volunteer of the Year, but I happen to have the Summit School PTO president this year for a Summit School Volunteer of the Year, and it's so appropriate because both Whitney and Rhonda worked so hard together this year in a joint effort for our 2-school fundraiser. And the effort that they put in combined, and then on behalf of Summit, is untold hours and so much hard work and creativity and drive. And I think you single-handedly put in 90% of the auction items that brought in funds for our school. She was on the phone with Disneyland, she was on the phone following up and trying to get things donated to the school on behalf of Summit School, and then that also generated earnings for San Antonio. It was a wonderful combined effort. And she also has a wonderful family too. Those family members behind the scenes do so much. But Rhonda has done an incredible job, and one of the memories I have was last summer working the guacamole booth at the Salsa Festival in Oxnard, and she spearheaded that, and it was so much fun, and I've never seen so much guacamole in my life. So Rhonda, thank you so much for all those great things you do on behalf of Summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then Ashley Roth from Topa Topa. Do you think we should?
I think she would love you to do it now.
She likes
Yes, absolutely.
Ella Ruff is also
great
Greg daughter at Topa, so thank you for giving us on behalf of your mom. So Asla is the Topa PTA president and also an Art Trek parent, which means that she teaches art class or lessons to the students once a week. And really, I have to thank Kevin because I'm pretty sure she lives at Topa. I don't know how anything gets done at their house at all because she really is there doing everything else too.
Speaking of Italians, we're not Italian Ed, but there's some Italian screaming that goes on related to volunteerism.
One of the things I love best about Asla is, as a principal, you're often up late at night thinking about all the great ideas and all the things that you want to get done. And I see her every morning because I have a child and there's a younger brother, John, and they're in the same kindergarten class, and so we see each other in the kindergarten yard every morning, and this is Janassy's class, actually. And we meet each other, and it's kind of like, oh, I had this great idea, and she says, and I had this great idea. And so we're always brainstorming and working together to make things happen, so I really appreciate that. And I do want to say that she did not want to accept this award unless she could accept it on behalf of the entire PTA board, because they work really hard together, and she wanted to make sure that everybody knew that. So I want to make sure that that is known today. So
thank you very much.
Thank you for
And that's the end of our volunteer recognition part of the program. I did notice that there are only 3 of you and there are 4 of us. So I'm wondering if we should challenge you to a race. And I don't think I came out and said it, but if anyone's been under a rock in Ojai, you won first place in the United States of America for the 4x800 relay. That is. Thanks to all you volunteers and the principals who've been here. Really appreciate it.
Ben, you should give them the opportunity now to leave. Don't you usually do that?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're free to go.
Yes, we do have a speaker at
yes, we do.
Thank you so
I'm just
yeah, let me.
Nice to see you again. I saw and then I wasn't sure. I'm like, you need something? Sam, thank you for coming. Very nice. You did a good job.
You have to go to the right-hand side.
Good. All right. It was fun.
I forgot they were going to do the... I didn't get a chance to talk about...
That was the main thing. Actually, that was the main thing.
During my campaign.
Oh, thank you. Always. You guys aren't getting rid of me just because it is Friday.
Oh, good.
Just so you know.
We could advance it.
Did you do that?
After we're not available,
You advanced it college?
Great, welcome back. And I just want to make a note. We're going to be honoring a few of the volunteers who weren't able to make it tonight. And one of them is Linda Taylor, who also happens to be a board member. She couldn't, exactly. That's what I was, she couldn't make it tonight because she is volunteering, and her commitment to the kids. It was something that she really needed to do, and we're happy that she did. But we'll be honoring her at our next meeting in June. So, moving on to our wellness policy presentation. This has been a lot of work, and if you could introduce it.
Well, I'd love to do that. Before I get off on other things, I want to make sure that I had identified 3 members of the committee who are here with me. One of our tri-chairs, Suzanne Lubitov, so Suzanne. Hello, right? Suzanne, as you know, is our Nutrition Services Director. Cheryl Beard, who's been at this wellness thing for longer than most people and still is. The registered dietitian and former president of Food for Thought, right? And huge member of our sort of conversation team about what we wanted to say. And Janine Murphy in the back, right? Who's the mental health clinician, but that's only your sort of formal title in the district. As I was telling a board member about 2 hours ago, when I get a really serious student issue, I or Dave or many others in the district, that's really sort of, above our pay grade. I call Janine and say, I need help, I need you to help me think through the intricacies of some very serious issues, which teenagers in particular, older teenagers, no matter where you are in the country, tend to bring. So welcome you all. We have lots of other members of the committee, and they're noted for the board. And the one person who isn't here tonight, who's been absolutely integral in the construction of this policy, I'll call it a policy and I'll explain that in a minute, who isn't here tonight is Lori Hammer, who's Executive Director of Food for Thought now, was the program director when I came, so she has increased her responsibilities. She's actually at a Food for Thought related conference tonight, but we'll be back with us on June 2nd. Okay, so when we get to the next stage, I'll also explain that in a minute. She will be here, Suzanne, if you can come back, and obviously I'll be here, and then we'll invite the rest of the committee back again to see the final product of their work. What I want to say in a brief introduction to this document is I sort of want to explain what we think it is and what it isn't. Let me start with what it isn't. Almost 2 years ago, October 2013, the board then approved the wellness policy, which I sent to the board. You've seen that, and its copies are in the back on the back table. What that is, so it's in its present form, is the document that came to us through CSBA, through the service to which we belong, and we get many policies many times a year, and we're going to be working on that starting again at the June board meeting to start updating our policies. So we have it. We did it. We have a policy. It's fine. It's as good as any other policy among the tens and the hundreds of pages that we have, and every Board of Education has it. And pretty much, if you go across all districts, you'll see, give or take a semicolon or two, pretty much the same thing. Okay, that's why you subscribe to the service. It's the document that from October 2013, passes all legal tests and is a guide for what the CSBA feels we should do. So that's what was in place 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. When I came here, there was a committee called the Green Committee, which is sort of what you would expect it to be, taking a look at all ways to be environmentally conscious. I thought it was a very high-functioning committee. My predecessor, superintendent, was absolutely committed to it. I learned, remember I didn't come from California, so I learned really how strongly Californians in general felt about the issue, and even more so how strongly the people of Ojai felt about it. Okay? So I sort of got on board, enjoyed it, and after a period of time, because it was clear that we were looking at a whole variety of issues that weren't just environmentally related, but actually a lot of the work was driven by Food for Thought, we renamed the committee to call it sort of the Green Wellness Committee. Okay, so merged a couple of initiatives. And from that, we developed a very detailed chart of green things, green-related things. And I'm proud of that, and we've committed ourselves to updating it. But also what we did was to start talking about wellness. And so this document, I would say, is well over a year in the making, pushing 2 years. And the commitment that we had as a group, let's just call it Lori and Suzanne and I and others, was to try to create a document where the principals, for example, could present it to an interested parent, say this is what the district says about wellness issues. Now, I want you also, so that's sort of, what this isn't is a replacement for the October 2013 document. I'm not coming to you and asking you to sign off on a document that will then go into your board policies and we're going to take the other one out. Not the case. Okay? We're going to keep the other one in. I'm not entirely sure what we'll do with this, except I want to make it very available. It could theoretically be an addendum. It could be a variety of things. I want to think about it a little bit more.
Can I just ask you, why not? Why isn't it just replacing it?
Because I think that it is incumbent upon us to keep the sort of the symmetry, if you will, okay, of the policies. The rest of the policies have nothing to do with wellness, and the board approved it. I guess I wouldn't want to try to make the argument that that policy isn't relevant, okay, because I think it is. I think it is. And there's some references in there that frankly mean a lot more to Suzanne than anybody else, okay, because it has all kinds of statutory reference, things like that, you know, which are good. I mean, if you ever want to go find it, whatever that statutory reference is, that's where you could be guided by that. But that wasn't really what we wanted to do. What we wanted to do was to try to speak English, right, without CFs and you know, school codes this. And this is what it is. So, you know, obviously we don't have, we certainly don't have the time to take every policy in the policy manual, create a committee, work for a year and a half or 2 years and come up with a statement. But I think what that should tell you is how important we felt wellness issues were and are, okay? So that's why it's before you today, and that's sort of the history of it. So the committee members, they varied a little bit over the years, over the months and years. This draft, albeit there are a couple things that, one I mentioned to the board, should have been in there, that wasn't. That's a good segue to my saying to you, there's no way that the people who wrote this together would argue that this is the definitive statement about wellness in Ojai. I mean, I have no doubt that the four of you and Linda, and I, for that matter, when I reread it, you're going to find things in there, number one, they could be said better differently. Number two, there are going to be things that could be said about that genre that isn't in there. There's some things that are said with which you disagree. So I have no doubt that's the case. I hope, though, that you're pleased with the result of, as I said, many person hours of work and an effort on our part to try to articulate those things that we think are wellness related, predominantly for students, but there are references to parents in there, and there's some references to staff in there. In some cases, they are lofty goals. You know what preambles are, right? In some cases, they are definitive statements. In some cases, they're recommendations or hopes. So that's sort of how this thing got to be this thing. By far, the person who's most affected by this document and who made the biggest contribution to the document is Suzanne. But I also want to say what I've said, I don't know, probably double-digit times by now, is that one thing, and probably the thing of which I'm proudest, relative to wellness in the district, other than Suzanne's personal work in the department, is one really good decision I made about 5 years ago, and that was to say to Suzanne and Lori, you need to work together to move the relationship between Food for Thought and the district ahead, and I'm going to get out of your way. And you come to me when you have something you want to tell me, come on. And they've done a fabulous job. And you know, I'm sure Cheryl's initiative and Marty's initiative, obviously, founding the whole group. You know, God bless her. You know, a number of years ago, and now here we are. And you always hope in the next generation you'll just be a little bit better. Without their initiative, we wouldn't be here. Without Lori's work and their board's work, we wouldn't be here. Without Suzanne's work, we wouldn't be here. So what I'd like to do then is just stop. And I want to give Suzanne an opportunity to participate in this introduction because she has some things specifically about nutrition that I'd like her to share with you. And then I'd like to get your views of the policy. I will say that, I'll just call it a policy. We'll figure out what the right terminology is. Or let's call it a policy. Not a board policy, but a policy. And certainly I know Cheryl, because she always has contributions to make. There'll be something she'll either want to say, or she'll figure out what you want to say after she hears what you have to say. Right? And Janine, the same thing. She said, you know, there's some additional things that I'd like to see included in that final document on the issue of how we deal with serious challenges that students have in the mental health arena. We'll do that. Janine is never shy about offering her opinions either. So in the meantime, though, Suzanne, if you would just tell us a little bit about your views, and then we'll move on.
Okay, well, thank you for letting me have some time tonight. I'm just going to give you a little history of how this has all come about. A local school wellness policy is a written document that guides a school district's efforts to establish a school environment that promotes student health, well-being, and the ability to learn by supporting healthy eating and physical activity. The local wellness policy requirement was established by the Child Nutrition and WIC Reauthorization Act of 2004, and further strengthened by the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010. It requires each school district that is participating in the National School Lunch or Breakfast Program to develop a local school wellness policy that promotes health to students. The responsibility for developing a local wellness policy is placed at the local level, so the unique needs of the community can be placed into that policy. In 2006, right after I was employed here, Ojai put together their first wellness policy. The document was a combined effort between community members and school district employees. The Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010 mandated that USDA set guidelines for what was needed in the local wellness policy, such as setting goals for nutrition education, physical activity, informing parents of the policy, and implementation, as well as periodic review. As part of the local school wellness policies, the proposed guidelines would ensure that food and beverage marketed to children in school are consistent with the recently submitted Smart Snacks in Schools and those standards that were employed this year, or in 2010. Over the past year, Ojai Wellness Committee / Green Committee members have met many times, and we've been reviewing this document with the focus of providing a document that can be put in every cafeteria that is welcoming for our parents to read. Looking at policies that are throughout our school district, they're not the easiest policies to read. They reference many areas that you would have to go diving for more information. So our goal was to have a document that could be found in each cafeteria, readily available for our parents, and that they would understand the commitment and the culture of this school district and how we are addressing wellness in full. So at this time, we've presented to you using a USDA best practices base that we found. We took that policy and we adjusted it using their recommendations and finding the pieces of Ojai that fit best into that policy. And so we ask you for your comments, questions, anything you'd like to add.
Great. Hang on, I'll just say that as one quick postscript, it's interesting. You know, first of all, I would say that there's no one in the district, no administrator in the district, who operates with more constraints and outside influences than Suzanne does. I mean, her whole life is based on whatever the federal guidelines are for X, Y, and Z. The one might be closest, might be special education. But you know, I try to read the LA Times and hopefully the Ventura Star pretty much every day. And it's interesting how many times there's an article on this general subject. I said to Suzanne a couple hours ago, today, I mean, talk about timing. The headline is "Effective Junk Food Laws is Uneven," and the sub headline is "Campus Restrictions Helped Students Fight Obesity in Richer Areas but Not in Poorer Ones, a Study Finds." And so, you know, as you read the rest of the article, I won't quote it, but essentially what they're saying is that in districts and or family environments where the parents have greater resources, they can make some choices for their children more on a daily basis than some others that have less resources. And so, you know, we're a diverse district. We have all of both, some of them. And, you know, Suzanne has to sort of navigate those waters and find a price of $2.25 or whatever it might be that is going to be used. And then use the commodities, right, at the right time with the right group, free introduced lunch, a la carte. It's quite a puzzle, to be honest with you, that she puts together. So that's it.
No, that's fantastic. This is great, and we're so lucky to have you and all of you that have been working on this. And I have done very little in this area, but early on in my Ojai Education Foundation years, I worked closely with Marty, and we did a lot with Food for Thought, and haven't been as involved as anyone else, but have just been really, I've been excited about this whole move over the years. But there's a lot more to it here. So I think we all probably have comments and questions. Does anyone want to go first? Or?
Sure. Do you mind? It was actually interesting to me to find how you had worked with sort of the Food for Thought and sort of the feelings of the Valley to work into this. And I wanted to congratulate you on that and say that's amazing, because without Food for Thought we wouldn't have the gardens, which provides such an opportunity for the kids, and then they come in to your meals and they can talk about things or they can recognize things. And I think that we need to, it's interesting that happens on this volunteer night, to encourage anyone who's here or watching to say, yes, if you have a passion like Food for Thought people, this district is willing to work with you, to welcome you, to contribute as best we can, as best you can, within all the federal requirements, you know. But I think it's important that, you know, you're sort of following the First Lady, right? We're exercise, better eating.
Or she's following us.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I just want to encourage you to keep doing that. And that's all.
I'd like to share something that happened this year that I found actually pretty exciting. It seemed as though all of the planets had aligned in this particular situation. We ended up being able to use some lettuce in some of our products this year that had been grown by our students. And this is the path it took. And I might be misquoting it, but I'll paraphrase it. Last year we grew some lettuce, it bloomed, we collected not me, this is everybody else, collected the seeds. This year we planted them at one location, they grew into seedlings. So that's another group of students that touched that product. Those seedlings were then planted somewhere else where two groups joined together, Nordoff and Miners Oaks, to help those grow. Then the Miners Oaks kids came and pulled all the product out. We collected it and we made salads for Summit and San Antonio. It was kind of this full circle of success.
Oh, that's great. That's pretty emotional, isn't it?
It was. It was, you know, the first time that it had ever come full circle.
That's what I love about Suzanne. Who else could get excited about lettuce? I mean, she's got this passion for that stuff.
Well, it was the whole salad.
The way I get it, I know. But it's a funnier story when you talk about it getting excited about lettuce.
That's right. That's right.
This is Mike Myers, your verklempt.
It's good. It's a good thing.
Coffee talk.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Great. So Michael?
Oh, sure. I actually thought this was very well done.
Thank you.
I see it as a expansion on the board policy of more specificity. I like the detail. I have one question. There's a lot of what I would call source ideas here that sort of expand on the board policy. And so my question is, in context, is this where individual schools will then develop their own wellness goals from this document?
Well, that's a good question. And I was speaking with Hank earlier today, and the way that I envision this is that this is a tool that we hand to a principal. And I don't know if you believe this or not, but I believe that a principal has a really strong connection with the environment of the campus.
They should.
And I really believe that if the principal is on board and understands that the district has a vision and a policy that we are hoping that they will follow, that then all of a sudden this community feel at that school embodies that. So it goes from the superintendent through the committee to the principal and down to the staff, and then eventually down to the students. So I believe that it's kind of this guide to bring awareness to certain areas that we can impact a student's life. Now, part of this is we are supposed to have assessment on how this policy is doing. And there are some tools available to us online, but we're still not quite sure how to employ that. And so as a committee, we need to develop that, but we're not 100% sure how that's going to happen.
Well,
That's that whole record-keeping section.
Yeah, that we're just not sure. How can we take another thing off?
It's in my office, they put it in my office. So my quick answer to your question is yes. I think that the purpose of this text, let's call it eventually a policy, is to make it more local. I mean, that's the whole point, that when you look at the board policy, as I said, it could be pick your town in California, right? And if you know, listen to Suzanne's introduction or her comments, the point of the initiatives from the state was to make it local. Okay, that's exactly what Jane was saying. You know, that this speaks locally to what we do. Otherwise, it's just a policy that could be anywhere. Right? So that was sort of the whole point of trying to write something that looked very much like an Ojai Daki. Okay? So I think it matches both of what you were saying, Jane. I do think it. Hopefully, you feel. I guess you do that it spoke about how you believe Ojai views these kinds of issues.
Yeah, and I did see it as sort of a roadmap of sort, like this is what we want to accomplish, and here's some thoughts that will help us accomplish that.
I guess my hope would be that all the work in this document isn't translated into just hope. That the work in this document is translated into articulable goals, locally oriented and locally sensitive, but specific initiatives, because that's how things get done.
Well, you know, again, I'm saying more about this issue than I do about most because it's in development. But for example, okay, in the mental health arena, Janine's been just unbelievable in the amount of time and expertise that she's brought to a variety of issues, one of which is the 2-year-old initiative now on dealing with bullying and harassment. And I can tell you unequivocally that there are very specific things, and I've sent them to the board. I'm not sure I've sent it actually since this board form, but I've sent lots of documents out of the board about where Janine has been recently and with whom she's spoken and what she's talking about, and report on the number of incidents, right? We'll talk about that, right? Report on the number of incidents. So some of the things are already very specific, others yet need to be. But otherwise, why do it if you're not going to?
It's good work. It's great work.
So I was on the board of Food for Thought for 5 years, and so I guess I want to begin by thanking you and thanking Hank for really changing the tone of the conversation those several years ago and sort of getting more productive. You know, you and I have spoken before about the water issue, and one of the things that's abundantly clear is it's a super complicated job you have. You know, I remember one point just saying, well, something about water, and you say, well, actually, it turns out, you know, we sell bottled water, and that's part of the revenue that goes to a very, 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 very tight budget. So with all that said, I guess my feeling is, and this kind of goes to something in here at page 8, Hank, is the implementation piece. Looks like it's in your lap. It talks about the district will establish a basis to implement these ideas. This goes to Mike's point of, you know, rubber hitting the road. I think it's a great document. I think you guys did a really great job. Thanks for all your work on it. And then the question is like, how do we implement it? And then, you know, having been on Food for Thought, I'll use the term food for thought. One moment of food for thought from my perspective is it's come up a lot lately. We've talked about watering our fields, elementary school fields. Well, one of the preamble points here is the vital importance of activity. So, you know, if that's a super important aspect, then, you know, at least let's keep that in our mind in terms of, you know, how we maintain our facilities for activity. That's a part of wellness. Thane jokingly refers to me as the water boy. I'm obsessed with water, both for our fields but also I am really interested in what we can do to increase the use of water as an alternative drink. Because, you know, having been on Food for Thought, I will tell you, I recognize it's so complicated. The reality is, you know, I think some people did studies in Los Angeles when Jamie Oliver was doing his changes to the food, the menus, and all these foodies say, you know, oh, Alice Waters does this fabulous roast pigeon with, you know, a tofu glaze, and then you give it to kids and they're like, wow, you know, I'm not going to eat that. So that's a huge aspect of food. It's, you know, kids eat often what they eat at home, and if they're not eating really great stuff at home, then it's going to be very difficult to change those habits at school. And it's important to get nourished sometimes more than it is to have that nourishment be perfect. So maybe a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is a better call for a kid that's going to eat the whole thing than something really, really fancy that they're not going to eat at all. So very complicated, but in that world, I think water, that's what's gotten me on the subject of water. It's like it's a relatively easy substitute, and, you know, at least most kids will drink water. Food for thought. But again, thank you very much. Thanks for all the cooperation. And, thanks for everybody.
It's interesting, Kevin. I like the fact that you brought in, it's not just something for principals, but it's something for us. I mean, it really makes us just think about, when I think about, you're talking about, you know, physical fitness, and the fields need to be ready, but we also need, you know, I'd love to have a PE teacher at the elementary. Oh, there you right? go. And so where are our focus? What are our priorities that can contribute to the wellness policy? Right. And that's...
No, just a couple of quick ones. Okay, a couple of issues. First of all, let's talk about water for a second. And I shared this with the board, and there will be a couple of 3-sentence actually piece at the end of the water policy that should be there. I won't go into every word, but it was written along the way. Actually, Suzanne wrote it, and somehow it got on the editing floor, but it'll be back in. You know, basically just saying that as resources become available, we're going to take a hard look at the way in which we can provide water to students. It's better said than that. But I know, because I've had some conversations with Josh Brown as our director of maintenance, that, you know, you can't just turn on a spout, and we know from all the hard work, again, Food for Thought is put into, I'm going to ask Suzanne to explain this, just the one thing that's happened in Nordhoff in the last number of weeks, you know, how it was located, how we just got everything to work there, and I'm positive that Chuck could contribute also on this one. You know, it's not simple. And so
there's a hydration station.
It's a hydration station, exactly.
In the cafeteria, right?
Outside.
Yeah. I mean, gym.
It's outside the gym. So, you know, how we do that at 8 schools and maybe more than one location in some schools, that's a facilities challenge, okay? And so the board can say, and we may well do that, that as we're looking at options, priorities for Measure J, that could well be something that we're going to look at, okay? I've already said, one thing I'm going to put on the table for Measure J is what our fields are going to look like in the next 10 to 15 years, okay? And we have some preliminary numbers on that. What do we have to spend to get our fields to a point where we're not constantly finding gophers and or other things? So, you know, I think those are just 2 pieces of the water issue. And there's so many other elements to it, but water is amazingly complex. And, you know, the last piece, and Suzanne would never let it be otherwise, but I can tell you that we've had inspectors in at a couple of different levels in the last couple of years, and we know that while I would never begin to say that, you know, the water availability is what we would want and in schools, it does meet our legal responsibilities. Now, you'd always like to do more than your legal responsibilities, but I can guarantee you that at least we do that, right? We know that, okay? So water is available, would you say, in reasonable proximity to where they eat lunch?
Where they
right?
eat or where food is served.
Where food is served, okay. Now, I'm not sure how close that has to be, but like you said, if it's on the baseball field, that wouldn't work for the cafeteria in Norfolk.
Fabulous document. I'm excited about it. You would never know from looking at me, but I have been on a health kick. And I have, it's true.
Listen, you said it. I
just asked my family.
But he's trying to use Measure J to get a hydration stick.
I'm all for water. And so I've been watching a lot of documentaries and TED Talks and other things. I do have just a few specific questions, and the reason I have them is because I love this so much that I want to make sure we fully talk about these things and get something in a month that is great. There aren't a huge number of specifics, as was mentioned, but there is one. There's quite a lot of specific stuff about milk. And
page on that?
On page 2.
Okay.
And one of the documentaries I saw, maybe it was Jamie Oliver, I think it was talking about how a lot of the milk in schools has added sugar. And I was just wondering if ours does, or if there's a way we can avoid that, or if not, why. And because I notice here it says we want fat-free, low-fat, low-sodium, low-fat, no trans fat, but it doesn't say anything about sugar.
Okay. Let me tell you what we currently are doing for milk.
Yeah.
Our white milk, we offer 2 varieties. We offer a 1% white and a non-fat white. Both of them have no added sugar.
Great.
We do not serve any chocolate milk at breakfast, and we only serve chocolate milk twice during the week. The chocolate milk is true moo chocolate milk that has no high fructose corn syrup, but I know there are some sweeteners in there.
Well, you would expect that in chocolate milk, but that's great to hear.
So we are really streamlined in that arena.
No, that's fantastic to hear. See how great we are here in Ojai? Because
That's 1 for 1.
Thank you.
Well, keep going.
Well, okay, so now I'm going to take the other side.
Here's the other shoe.
So the other side of that is, I'm excited about all the healthy alternatives. I think that's fantastic. And especially encouraging parents to bring snacks that are healthy and rewards that are not food-based and all of, because I think, we get into bad habits, just like you say in the document. And however, I'm troubled about banning the joy that kids have in their lives. I don't know if you said anything. So I did.
No, I did. It's a muffin.
So no, it's a cupcake. So there's a. Anyway, on the healthy page, it can be a muffin. But it would be troubling if parents were banned from bringing cupcakes for special events, or Halloween or Valentine's Day if there's a little candy.
Got bad news for you.
Yeah.
That makes me feel really bad.
Can I say something?
Yeah, that's what this is all
about. There are other options to making everybody feel important and happy about their birthdays too, other than food.
Oh, yeah.
There's other ways.
No, and I like all of those ways. I just think banning one of them, I think we should have all of them.
We're not banning that at home. They can do whatever they want at home.
Well, I think you forget, if you've got 31 kids in the classroom, right, and you've got 9 months, that means at least 3 times a month, you're getting cupcakes.
Well, not all the parents do.
Then you've got Halloween and Valentine's Day and the group.
So let's explain that. Those are all
St. Patrick's.
Those are great points. So we have 2 principals, elementary principals. I don't think I'm worried about the high school right now. Let's say with 2 elementary principals.
And an elementary teacher.
Excuse me?
And an elementary teacher.
Oh, absolutely. And Angie, of course, kindergartens, right? So we have elementary people who live in our elementary schools all the time. I was thinking more about the principals because I think they're the ones that get hit on, if I can or can't do something. I guess the question is, where's the line between strongly, I want to take your point, strongly recommending, we think these are the right things to do, and banning, okay? So, you know, do we ban? I don't know. I'm positive that Cheryl and Catherine and Angie don't go out there and they're not the cupcake police. You know, I mean, I don't think you do that, but you also make it pretty clear, don't you? I mean, why don't you talk a little bit, and then Angie.
I mean, you guys should tell us what's going on out there. Damn, that's what this is about.
I was on the wellness policy the last time we wrote a wellness policy.
And you're on it again.
And I'm on it again. And so coming out of that, we had some great documents that had been developed. Many of them are in this document right now. And those were distributed at our school sites. And I guess my staff just got really lucky to have a principal that was on the committee because we attacked it pretty hard then. And we really discouraged parents, and we came up with all kinds of different alternative ways of doing it. And I would have to say that for the most part, it is very rare that you see cupcakes coming into our school. And it's to the point where the teachers, you know, they send the same message too, that they really, it's disruptive to class. We've got food allergies. You never know how those cupcakes or where they've been prepared. You know, there's a lot of reasons to not have that happen, and a lot of really fun ideas that teachers have come up with to celebrate birthdays and have classroom parties. Now there are parents that will bring healthy alternatives too. You see fruit come in a lot, and the kids have gotten used to that's the new cupcake. So, yeah.
Well, I love, like I said, I love the healthy stuff. Is it necessary to ban?
It's not being banned. Suzanne?
Yeah, good.
It's not
Angie,
being
go
banned.
ahead.
This is a recommendation.
It is, they're right.
Right.
You have to get the right noun or verb or whatever. Angie,
Well, my take on it was different. Like I had a year where I had 9 birthdays in October. And so it was 9 cupcakes every
2 days,
more.
2 or 3 days.
So at that point I said, we're not going to bring cupcakes anymore. We're only going to celebrate once a month for everyone's birthday, and we're going to cook. So we made, you know, because I like to cook with my students, so we made pizza one time, we made cookies one time, we made rustic apple tarts one time, and it was a great celebration. The kids learned about cooking, they learned about food. They learned, it was a wonderful experience. So taking the opportunity to take food out of the birthdays sort of took the joy out of that situation. So it's like, I don't like cupcakes because all the kids do is really just lick the frosting off. That's all they do. And mostly you don't get little cupcakes, you get the giant Vons cupcakes. So I agree that
bright
those,
blue ones.
Yeah, and it's like this, and then it's on the floor, and it's just an awful situation. But I also think that taking food is part of what we do in any culture to celebrate. And I think that that's part of what we teach is our culture. So taking food out, and I know that we do that in our homes, but we also do that at school. And so taking that away is very sad to me.
Is food out of it now? I mean, are you now?
No, it doesn't, but that, I mean.
But you're still doing what you described?
No, no, because I thought there was no, I thought we had a no sugar, no thing policy, so I just took it out and said, don't bring food.
I think that's my understanding is kind of what's going on at Topa now, right?
We do have some recommendations for the types of foods that would be better options. I love this document because it actually now gives us something to very directly hand to people. These are great ideas.
Yeah, I saw that too.
But
I loved it.
I know, like for Halloween, for example, one of the cutest things I saw were little witch pots, and they had ranch dressing in the bottom, and then carrot sticks and celery sticks popping out. So I think what happens over time is people start to share ideas and see ideas, and then. Excuse me, and then we realize that there's lots of really great options that are fun and still celebrate, you know, the day or the occasion, but can be healthier in nature. So it's kind of a slow process, though. I don't think we have to ban it completely. So I'm sorry if that's the message that got out this year, but certainly we're in a changing process where I know a lot of parents at Topa were in an uproar at the end of last year and shared with me at the beginning of this year that there were just too many celebrations, and it does become problematic when you have like 30 kids in a class. And then all the holidays, and then all the events, because it becomes nine birthdays in 1 month. That can be a lot of sugar for families that are trying to avoid that and eat healthy. So we have to sort of the paradigm swings. We don't want to swing too far. We don't want to totally ban it, but we need to swing it in that healthy direction. I think we're working toward that definitely. So.
One of the things that's interesting as I hear you talk is that, I realize that a 5-year-old, a 9-year-old, let's just say that kind of age group, could sit there and say, if there were a bunch of cupcakes sitting around, no, I won't do that. But I don't think that's realistic. If there's a cupcake there, they're going to either lick the frosting or eat the whole cupcake.
53.
And so there's a piece of what we need to be thinking about, that we have, let's say with a class, 30 students who are under our care, and we need to be careful not to be having someone else's views and someone else's priorities impact 29 other kids, right? Whose homes are set up in such a way that that's being discouraged. So I know you could say don't eat it, but that's not realistic. So and I also agree that there's a point at which, nothing here says don't celebrate happy times with food. That's not what this says. Okay? There's certain foods, and even then, we're not, like I said, we're not demanding it never happen. But it's in the hands of principal, teacher, to do your best to address the issue. And Suzanne's absolutely right. From you and me, to the principals, to the teachers, to the students and parents, over time, that's when you end up with a different scenario in 2017 than you had in 2007. Sure.
I think what I'm really liking about this discussion is it brings up, Kathy and I were both involved in the very first, writing of the wellness policy, as Suzanne was. And way back then, the big concern was just meeting the requirement to have a policy. Basically just to dot the i's, cross the t's, put it in a notebook, and there you go. So my biggest concern now is really with what Mr. Shanahan was speaking to, earlier, the implementation and the accountability piece of this, because that, from where I sit, seems to have been missing, going back all the years ago that we set this all up. And just this discussion, that's a real problem, is how is this implemented? If the message you got was absolutely no food at all for celebrations, and you're here, so there's a problem here in communicating this document and what it really means. So I think that's really what I'm going to have to, kind of say, I guess, since I've been involved in this for a while, is, I really need to see people step up and not just have this document go into a file or a notebook somewhere, but it needs to be a living document that gets used, gets implemented, and everybody understands from the top all the way down to the teachers and the parents, so there's no confusion. But just the fact that Mr. Whipple was confused about whether these were being banned or not, no, these are recommendations here. So it's really, I think, more up to the individual school, the principal, with his or her staff, to decide how best they want to implement this, or it needs to be something that the board and Mr. Bankser agree on. This is what we are going to say to all of you, is how it's going to be implemented. But there has to be some cohesiveness, because clearly hasn't happened up until now.
Right, and I agree. I'm very happy with the conversation we've had today. I fully agree. I think, having sugary food, the cookies or cupcakes or whatever, should be at a minimum. We should encourage the other things. I'm happy to hear that there's not a prohibition. I'm fully comfortable with encouraging the good stuff, but I am concerned that communication that we're not communicating that. We're communicating something, but it's not that. So, yeah, hopefully this will get us there.
Well, I think I certainly, as somebody who wanders around TOPA, I've definitely seen the flip side that you don't, I know you don't intend to be the reflection of the old school sugar, addicts.
No, but I wanted it at a minimum. In fact, I stopped eating sugar for about a year ago, and so I'm with that.
But there's something, there is something in the dignity of a human being who has kids, who likes to celebrate their birthday, that, this actually is kind of important to some people. And
And I've definitely heard the flip side of it, where people are like, really? The school district now says I can't bring a cupcake, you know? And so, you know, I think it's great that it's not a ban, that's number one. And I think, two, I think the conversation is actually more important than the specific result. It's the conversation, you know, the conversation with the parents about, hey, you know, we're trying to be more nutrition conscious, we're trying to have less sugar, we have 9 birthdays all in a month. That conversation to me is really what needs to be going on more.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to throw in, I disagree with that. I mean, I think, yes, the conversation, but I think it's okay to say, no cupcakes, no cookies. We're going to have healthy things, because it also helps all those people who want to be doing that and they don't know how to do that. They could say, see what the school says? We shouldn't be eating this. Let's have more of this. It's helpful. And I mean, we also say you can't go in the school and smoke, right? So I think it's okay for us to say, no, we can still celebrate with food and honor the occasion without it being a cupcake.
I don't think it's creating deprivation.
Yeah.
Well,
but we can move on.
I would just say, I think there are ways you can do it. I think you can do things like, if it's important to some people, you can do it once a month or once every 2 months. I think you can find ways to satisfy everybody.
Actually, I think the beauty of this document is that it leaves space for that. It doesn't, as you say, it does not actually ban anything other than reward and punishment, which I wholeheartedly endorse. It does tend to tilt very heavily toward carrots, but you know, carrots are cool. And the rest of it, I think, is in the hands of our educators, who really are on the ground and they know what our folks want. I do kind of resonate just a little bit with what Thane is saying, in the sense that I think it's important, and it's grade dependent, but I think it's important that our kids understand how to deal with these things when they get out there, right? So total deprivation is not the word I'm looking for, but total non-sugar, no kind of any of this stuff. Then we grow up and then we binge on it, right? And so part of it is, you know, part of good nutrition is teaching kids how to deal with it when it's in front of them, you know, with McDonald's, and when they're not here in school as well.
And this list isn't sugar-free, by the way.
No, I know it's not.
Yeah.
And I think that you've left a lot of freedom here for the individual schools. I think that's good.
Right. I took both sides of this on the sugar thing, just as in defense of whatever. A couple of other quick questions. One was in the mental health section, and I don't want this taken in the wrong way either. I think addressing bullying is huge. I don't know that anybody could ever do enough. I know we're doing more now than we've ever done. I'm excited about that. It seems to me, though, that there are a lot of mental health issues that are direct mental health issues, and I'm just wondering if bullying should be a different paragraph, or if it really is a mental health issue. I kind of see them as two different things, both under the wellness category. This isn't that important because it's there, but I'm just wondering what your thoughts are.
I think it's a good question, and originally it was 2 separate paragraphs. But when we think about mental health and we think about bullying, we do know that it impacts our mental health positively or negatively, because we can learn lessons, right? So that's positive, so we can learn from our mistakes so that we don't do it again. Not everything is considered bullying. There is teasing, rough play, lots of other things. And so encompassing, I mean, mental health is so hard because there's so much that does go into it. So we just really want to focus on best practice and being proactive. So that's some of the documents that I'm hoping will go in a little bit later.
Great. Yeah, because we speak about mental health generally in here, but not a lot of specifics, and so I know, I mean,
sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I mean, we could have, volumes if we went into all the details. I think the general approach is fine. I just, thinking through that, I had a couple of other comments, but I think we've had a great conversation. And I just want to thank you for all your great work.
I just had one other quick comment that Suzanne, when she was introducing this, and I apologize, Suzanne, because maybe you had another document that everyone got, but I just wanted to make sure that you had a chance to explain to everyone your intention of the use of appendix to the document and, getting the language in, user-friendly form for parents. But you can probably speak better to the appendix. We're set up in a way to make the document, easily to change over time.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Okay, so I
remember we talked about that as new rules, regulations, whatever, or just better thoughts come in, we can just change that one page.
Right. One of those, of course, being the one that, we were talking about with the sugar.
Yeah. Another thought, this isn't a request, but a thought is our board policies reference a lot of other documents.
Oh, gosh, yes.
And so I'm wondering if we make mention of this in our policy.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I want to fiddle around with a couple of different ways of having this be part of, let's just say the website. When you go on the website, okay, you'll see board policy for that particular subject, but this is the one we would want people to see as the statement from the committee through the board to our website. If they want to go find, that number, right, in the board policy, they can do that too, but I don't think they will. So that's sort of my intent, is that's where this would be. It would be in the schools, as you said. It would also be our official statement about how we feel about it. One last couple of things. First of all, any of you who's now read it, so the 5 of you, including Linda, anything that you see that is cosmetic, could be said better, just send them to me, right? I'll put them together. I told you about a couple of sentences that we need to have at the end of the water policy, or the end of the water statement. I'm going to ask the committee to read it again over the next couple of weeks to see if there's anything else that, now that we tried to put it together and incorporate people's ideas, if there's something that could be improved, whatever the language might be, and it'll come back to the board no later than the Friday before the June 2nd board meeting, so the end of May. And then I will put it on as a recommended action item for the board, so that we said by June 3rd, which I'm not going to send it out on June 3rd, but it'll be part of the material that everybody knows is the 2015-16 iteration of what we think about this subject.
And I'd like to see this document possibly used at the first in-service opportunity at the schools, that it can be introduced and shared with our staff.
It goes back to your idea about the role of the principal.
Great.
I guarantee the superintendent will be involved.
Terrific. Thank you so much. This is great stuff. We have been asked to approve a resolution in recognition of Classified School Employee Week, and I'm excited about that. I think that would be great. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Great to have you here, Chuck. And convey our thanks to everyone else on your team. All right, we're moving to the money stuff now. Item 7.4.1, preliminary budget.
Okay, so Laura, where are you, Laura? I was there. Why don't you run up here and just be a little bit more interactive with us. I'll start, and Laura has done all the hard work and has constructed this document. I'm going to sort of play Danny's role on this to a certain extent, and just point out the most important issues, both for the community, as Kevin would say, for all those who are watching on TV, and then to some extent for the people who are here, that they can see it. So this document has a couple of different parts to it. A 2-page memo from Laura, who's our Director of Fiscal Services, detailing the important pieces of data that affect the preliminary budget for next year, which is this view in early May, and we'll talk about how that's going to change in the upcoming weeks. So there are numerous paragraphs with numerous numbers and the resultant change in dollars. There's some that are more important than others. I won't go into all of them, but we'll get to some of them later. But there are various references to what we know are a huge increase in STIRS rates and PERS rates, and we've talked about this, that issue at this table a lot. We talked about our P2 number, and that came up when we were talking about that before, Kevin. So we know we're slightly in excess of 2,500 for next year, which is down, this year, for this year. P2 for this year, ADA for this year, slightly above 2,500. Next year it will be less, and the number of dollars we receive obviously next year will be decreased by whatever that decrease in ADA is. Then we have more on health and welfare, which is really good news. There's a piece in here about staffing on the top of page 2. It's the third page, but that's only because we have a cover page of the agenda item. And essentially now for what would be the third year, that is 15-16, 14-15, 13-14, the staffing across the district in all areas, certificated classified administration, is about the same. And the good news there is two things. One, on a personnel level, as I've told you, we're able to reemploy basically everybody who wants to be reemployed at almost exactly the same level they were employed this year. Second, because our enrollment is declining, which isn't good news, when you have fewer students, same staff, obviously the ratios drop. Therefore, to a small extent, class size drops. To a small extent, the secretary in the school, number of kids serving, families served drops a little bit. Administration issues can drop a little bit, although that's subject. We'll see how that all works. And so it's about the same, and that's pretty good news. So that's in general, and Laura can certainly fill in everything in between. There are many line items in the next several pages. As every budget shows, there's even way more backup to all of this. But as you move to page 6 of 6, as Danny always said, you always look at the bottom line and work back up. That's true. And so you can see in the middle of page 6, under preliminary 1 column, there are two very critical numbers there. One is the reserve, to be distinguished from fund balance. The reserve for next year is stated at 2.25%, which was the commitment that we made to Ventura County Office of Education 5 years ago to increase our reserve 0.25% a year from 1, which was the 10-11 school year amount, up to 3%, which is the state strongly recommended number at a minimum, so we're gaining on it. So the budget for next year presently includes that commitment of 2.25%, and then when all the ups and downs and revenues and expenditures, the changes that Laura writes about in the previous pages, when they're all folded together, at this moment, we are looking at a $300,000 fund balance. That is revenues over anticipated revenues over anticipated expenditures. However, and this is important, right, Laura, so you can remind us, that when the March revenues came in compared to the January revenues, the governor, we appreciated it, gave us about $440,000 of one-time new money, right? Okay. And when you and I and Danny sat around and said, okay, what's the best way to do that? Obviously presented to the board to use that money. We said to the board, let's number one, make our budget whole. That's W-H-O-L-E, whole. So that we are even expenditures and revenues, right, projected, and we needed about $200,000 to do that. I'm rounding off. And the other $200,000 came in here, right? Okay. So about 200 of this 300,000 is one-time money. Every time I look at that, Laura keeps reminding me of that. It's one-time money. And we'll have conversations, I'm sure, in the upcoming weeks about what one-time money is compared to ongoing money. So 100,000 is not one-time, therefore sort of ongoing revenues over expenditures. 200 is one-time. And the last thing I'll say about this is that we are all waiting anxiously to hear what will be coming out of Sacramento in the next 10 days to 3 weeks at the most, 2 to 3 weeks.
Should be.
Yeah, we got it
soon.
As to what the overall state increase will be for LCFF funding. Then Laura needs to take that big ball and figure out, however you do that,
by applying formulae to that, what our most likely increase will be on the revenue side, and that will be not one-time money, okay? So that's good ongoing money. And then, once we get that number, and Angie, who's on the executive committee of the Hawaii Federation of Teachers, Chuck, who's the president of the CSEA group, I've already talked with each of them, bless you, with others, and so as two groups and then as a totality, they're representatives of those two groups and me and Laura, we are going to sit down and go over all this and see how those numbers pan out. The last thing I'll say about that number, which is going to be more than 316, as sure as I'm sitting here, is that there are three components to whatever that number is. One is what we just said. Even within the 300,000 rounded off, there's one-time money and ongoing money. Then, beyond that, so whatever dollars come beyond that, hopefully well into six figures, we need to make a judgment, and certainly the union leadership will be involved in this, but the board needs to make a judgment with my recommendation, certainly involving Laura, as to how much of the totality we should spend either on one-time expenditures, which can happen, or on ongoing expenditures. Okay? And there's not a perfect number there, but ultimately we're going to have to decide that, because I've already seen the possible June 2017 projected bottom line. And depending on what happens in Sacramento within the next several weeks, it's either really not pretty or it could get better. But some of what that bottom line looks like will depend on what we decide, you all, with our help, decide to spend. Right, Laura? That fair summary?
Yeah.
Okay, so we know we're not going to spend everything, but we also have to see if we spend X in the 2015-16 year of one-time money, ongoing money, what does that likely look like for June 2017, recognizing, to be fair, that typically during the year, school year, things get better, right? They do. They get better on the expenditure side because you're not going to spend 100% of your budget, right? So that's going to help. If you spend 99%, even 1% helps. And on the other hand, in general, I've been around California long enough to know that in general, the revenues at the end of the year for the following year are better than what you thought they were going to be mid-year. Right? That's fair. That's generally happened. Okay. See, Laura's more conservative than I am.
I like it. I like it.
I think that it's true. It's true. You know, how much better? How much better? No, we don't know. Anyway, okay. So Laura, what items from your cover memo and the attached pages would you like to emphasize that I haven't already said?
Well, we pretty much knew the STRS and PERS rates were going up. The PERS rate did come in less than what we were projecting at the multi-year projection we had at revision 2. They were talking about 12.6%. So that actually came in less at 11.847, so I was really excited about that.
So less of an increase.
Less of an increase, so yay. So that was excellent. And then the health and welfare rates, I think this is the first time, probably in 20 years that I've been here, that I've seen the rates come in this low. Yeah, less than 1.5% basically. So that's amazing. So maybe Obamacare is helping things, I'm not sure. But
I think it's our health and wellness policy.
Anyway, that was amazing. We're really excited about that. So we're still waiting for the work comp rates, but the JPA was talking about possible reduction on those too. So that would actually help our fund balance too, if those come in less than what right now. I had them in the same as this year, so hopefully they will go down. That'll be awesome. So other than that, not a lot of change. We did have to help the adult ed fund out a little bit with the general fund contribution for the first time, because we've been basically spending down the fund balance that had accumulated in that fund, the adult ed fund. just to keep the program afloat as it was, you know, laid out. So, and then the cafeteria fund, we're looking at a general fund contribution also next year. And again, the cafeteria fund had a pretty good fund balance at the beginning of this year. So we're seeing that spend down. So we may have to start kicking in. It'll just kind of depend on how we end up at the year end. You know, Suzanne's working hard on cutting expenses and using those commodities, and so we're got our fingers crossed. But I just thought I'd just put that in there just as a little insurance, just in case. You know me, conservative. So other than that, I'm still working through details on expenditures, and we're hoping for good news at the May revise for revenues. So.
Question on the certified staffing changes. Are those based on projected enrollments?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yes, well, I would say yes, and yes and almost yes. Okay, so the general staffing, so the classified staff, that has nothing to do with enrollment. Okay, so, I mean, and Chuck, we had a long conversation yesterday, so I just made a judgment that there's no way that I could find any place in any part of the school district where we had any opportunity to make a choice, okay, about classified staff, where I thought a decrease made sense even though we had declining enrollment. Okay, so that was unrelated. Where we don't have an option, which is just, you know, everybody understands this, is there are always going to be tens of special education conversations that will always result in some additional classified staff and some certificated staff coming out of the IEPs, right? Because you don't know what that's going to be. But it could be a one-on-one aid, it could be speech therapy, it could be a whole variety of things. A new class sometimes in special education with a teacher. As far as the bigger enrollment changes are concerned, and again, I reported to the board back when this year that it was pretty clear that we were looking at two drops in enrollment, one at Topatopa, one at Nordhoff, that were almost exactly equal, about 40 students. And the combination of those two equaled almost exactly the projected district enrollment drop for next year. So the two together is about 80, and we're looking.
So it's your sixth grade at Topa is going.
Sixth grade is 90 kids, and we're not going to have 90 kids coming in kindergarten. You know, so there'll be a few other ups and downs, but basically it's 35 to 40, and you know, we're not expecting that many kindergarten kids. So we're looking at one less teacher at Topatopa, and as you can see here, a little less than one less teacher at Nordhoff. Just works out section-wise, and I wouldn't even tell you that that's likely to be the final number, because every August 20-something, when the students come in and Greg or Dan Music and I look at the master schedule, there are always some things you didn't anticipate. You know, we thought there were going to be 32 kids in the class, and all of a sudden 30 kids are showing up, and so we have to make a change. But that's pretty much it. So it's about even district-wide, classified and certificated, and we have an 80-plus student drop, so therefore the ratios are better. Okay, that's better. They're not what we want, but better. Just a couple of things adding on to what Laura said. So going back just for a minute to what is and what is not in that 310,000 plus five. Okay, so all the things that Laura wrote about are in there, but even after you wrote 310, the next day you called me and said, well, it's not going to be 310, it's going to be, because we just lost money in a fund and on the revenue side, right?
The COLA, that came in less than what they were projecting. So yeah, so my prelim 2 COLA number is going to be adjusted. So the LCFF revenue is going to be adjusted down for that COLA change. But
so
maybe the gap percentage will be increased.
Right. So we're hoping, right, we're hoping offset. So we can't write a new report on every single
thing. It changes every day.
It does, okay. So that's sort of one thing. The other thing is, just a reminder, I know the board knows this, I know Angie knows it, Chuck knows it, but just to say that that number, that fund balance, which by the way is 1.5% of the whole budget, so it's not very much, that still includes a remnant of the Furlough Day program, which has been around now since 2009-10. Okay, it's not as much as it was, but it's still 2 days for certificated, 2 days for classified, and a few more days for, a couple more days for administration. So that's something we need to address. And we need to address it by talking about it and doing something about it depending on how much money we have, right? But that's what's in there. So it's not fully funding, if you will, our calendar. It fully funds the student calendar, but it doesn't fully fund the staff calendar. Okay?
Any other questions?
Just on, I know this is preliminary, but the books and supplies, the big difference between the 14-15 and 15-16.
What line is that?
4400.
Okay.
I mean, it's the total I'm looking at, not that's one of the lines, but
Yeah.
looks like we're down about $500,000 for the.
Yeah, but I didn't detail out the differences between 14-15 and 15-16 because you're dealing with the revision to the second interim budget versus the adopted. And what we do at adopted is we do not budget for carry forward balances in the categoricals, and we do not budget for donations. So all that money that was donated by OEF, the PTOs, all that funding that happens all during the year of 14-15, we actually sweep all that out for adopted. So we don't know what we're gonna get.
And it was significant this year, $300,000.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, you'll see in the restricted fund that for revision 2, the ending or the beginning fund balance was $740,000 in the restricted column. So if you go to the third page, but then move over to 14-15 and it's 0 for the restricted balance. So those categoricals that will actually have an ending fund balance are not budgeted for at adoption. At first interim is when we bring back those fund balances. So those supplies budgets, those professional services budgets, a lot of them are just holding dollars for those carry forward balances.
So Laura, this has been a source of numerous questions I had, because this is not the way Illinois did it. That's okay. And it also is, I think, I know you understand it, and Dan is, but I think it is confusing.
It's very confusing.
So when you look, here's my question. So if a community member comes to a board member, comes to me and says, look, all I want to do is I just want to compare what you're planning to spend in 2015, your budget adopted on June 30th, compared with what you either spent in 2014-15, which you don't know until you're on it. I get that. Okay. But what we think we spent. Okay. And what we plan to spend. Right. So,
yeah.
I mean, in a simpler environment out there, right, you get budgeted in 14-15, spent in 2014, not done yet, because not audited, and plan to spend in 2015. So how do we get that? What kind of document does that? There isn't one, right?
Not really. I mean, at second interim, we're showing what's budgeted and what we've spent. You can see, okay.
Remind everybody what month that is. What month is second interim?
Second interim is the March.
March, okay.
We brought that to you in March.
Right, okay.
Right. So that's, sometimes we do a third interim, which would be probably like right about now. I think the June meeting is when I would have brought a third budget revision if we had done one, but this year we just decided not to. So you would get a little closer with your budget and your actual expenditures for 14-15, you would see that. And then you'd have a new ending fund balance that comes forward for 15-16 as your beginning fund balance. So
I know I've asked this several times because you brought it up. Now you're going to be like,
I did. No, that's
this
fine.
is where I don't get it. Okay, so it makes total sense to me that you can't budget in what you don't know that you have. So donations, let's just use that as an example for me. Right. And again, I'm going back to sort of my PTA mind. So we do this budget and we decide, here's how we're going to be spending this money. And we vote on that on June 30th. Then come January, we have more money.
Correct. And all those budgets are increased. the donation account in the revenue side is increased.
But we
And the
never talk about
expenditures-
where it goes on the expenditure side.
Well, in donations, they're given for a specific reason. And so that is budgeted for that specific. They're hiring an extra clerk at Miramonte School for the office. It's budgeted in the classified salary.
And is there anywhere that somebody could see that, you know what I mean? Sort of like, because all we see is classified support, and so we wonder, well, how do we?
Anytime.
Why didn't we use that money
You'd have to go sit down and
Yeah.
look at the backup. Right.
Yeah, I can provide you details on anything.
But I'm more frustrated with the
you
other
want.
thing, the other one, because, again, every state's
To
different.
me, the categorical money is kind of the big mystery, you know, because we always have carry forwards at the end of the year. You know, we always do. And so it kind of just disappears at adopted, and then it magically reappears at first interim. But, you know, Danny and I've kind of been back and forth on that. Really, is that the right, you know, but we just can't see any other way to do it.
So in the middle of the year, do we get, okay, everybody says, oh, the economy's better, so the school districts are gonna get more? More for next year, or
It's
more
next-
right?
It's next year.
Right.
Next year. You don't, I mean, I guess.
So you can't say, oh, we're gonna hire another teacher.
I haven't seen
in the
more,
middle
I
of the
haven't
year.
seen, I don't know, I haven't seen more money come during the year. Well, no, there was that one. It was this past year, we had that $170,000.
Right, it was
investment.
mandated costs, the same, the first one-time money for
One time.
prior mandated cost
Right,
claims.
that was at one time, right.
Came in at first interim, 170,000. So that again is one-time money that we're spending in this current year. The same as the 448,000 one-time money that we're budgeting for next year.
In general, the
One-time
answer is
money.
no. I mean, you don't, that was.
Feels like it does.
Yeah, well, that was where, they went back and, rejiggered, some things about the
They owe
definition
us
of.
for a lot of
Right,
prior
right,
years
right.
mandated.
But in general, what they say you're gonna get is what you get.
Yeah, we're lucky to get it.
Okay, but I want to, okay, well, I'll just leave it, I'll leave it at that.
But again, to the general audience, if this doesn't make sense, the accounting that we're required to do for the state of California is not like anybody learned accounting in school, anybody's ever done accounting for a company, the way anybody's ever done accounting for anything else. This is a whole different thing.
And I'm telling you, or accounting in two
And
pretty big
it's
states
big
east of
states,
here.
yeah.
Okay, that's just not the way it's done, there's only like a number. There's a number on June 30th that you spent the year before, or that year. A number that you're planning to budget, and a number that's the difference between the two. But, anyway, I mean, I know the numbers are right, it's just frustrating.
And we're required to adopt a budget in June before we have an ending fund.
Oh, that we know.
So,
Yeah,
there you go.
Well, so my point here is thank you.
There you go.
Because
Glad you understand.
you understand the magic that has to be done to make the state happy. And if anyone wants to spend the time, they can do that.
Sure, I'm happy to
I'll
provide
do that.
details.
I know she'll do that.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. With respect to the donations, how do we track that? Is that like, is each principal actually tracking donations, PTA, all that stuff that gets funneled into the budget?
Yeah, all the sites have specific codes in our system. So if a site is given a donation, it is given to that site, it is tracked for that site. And as well as the expenditure, we have specific codes that we identify that specific donation with that site is that code. So anytime I can provide the principal, if they got a $10,000 donation, at any time we can tell them, okay, you spent $5,000, you still have $5,000 left. So, yeah, we track it.
How about money that's not actually ever in the coffers of our district, but is just spent directly on some subject?
If a PTA does an expenditure on their own, you mean?
Right.
Or, yeah, and I wouldn't have any knowledge of that. If it's a PTA expenditure, that's a PTA expenditure. It's outside of our books. If the PTA gives us a donation for a specific reason, then we track it.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Laura.
That's very informative. And it's really good for us to get this information a little bit at each board meeting, because all of it at once would be way too much. Fantastic, thank you. All right, so now we are asked to take an action on the post-employment benefits plan. Can you explain that?
I'll start, and then I'm going to go back to Laura again. Okay, so essentially there are two choices, as the document I think pretty well outlined it. One is the one that we've used. Laura, have we ever not used pay-as-you-go? Have we ever not used pay-as-you-go? Okay. It's not, it could be a really good decision if you had a lot of fund balance.
Absolutely, yeah. There are districts in our county, a few, I think, that have set up there's specific funds that you can set up, and they usually hire like a trust company to manage that. So they're contributing to that fund, and then that affects their...
We obviously don't have the ability to do that.
Correct.
So that could be a way to go, and it could maybe save you money over the long run a bit. But if you don't have that option, then we have one option, which is the one I'm recommending, which is that we pay our required amounts in our budget, and it's still a significant line item. You know?
Oh yeah.
Big line item, right? But this is our really only choice, therefore that's what I'm recommending.
And this is an annual thing we have to do. Well, we either have to do this or something else, but I can't afford to chip in the rest. So.
And if I understand it correctly, even if we were to start a trust fund, we'd still be doing pay-as-you-go because the trust fund isn't going to cover it.
For some period.
For some period.
It's like Laura said, I don't know who, we have to try to name the districts, but for those that made a decision and had the option X number of years ago, it's a little, in a way, it's a little bit like when you give out scholarships, and you build up a corpus and then you spend out of that some amount, right? Okay. You have to spend a little bit more than scholarships typically you spend, which is 5%. But you'd have to have a really big corpus to be able to do this.
Just so I am totally clear about it, when we say pay as we go, we're paying all of the benefits that on a yearly basis that are associated with our retirees during that year. So essentially we're just paying whatever our retirees are entitled to.
Right, it's just the major medical plan that the retirees get.
And then how about the
until
other?
age 65, then they age out of our system.
So line item 3,700?
Constantly adding retirees and then aging out.
Or is all of that in 3,700?
Correct.
Yeah, that's right. So that line
Yes, object code 3,700.
So we're talking about for us 600,000.
There's about 52 retirees, I believe, right now that we're covering. It's on a 3-tier, so you have your single rate, you have your 2-party rate, and you have your family rate. And believe it or not, we have some retirees that still have dependents under age 26. Those family rates are now up to, I think it's $18,000 a year.
It's interesting because I thought Danny told us at a meeting that we weren't actually paying a differential for people who had individual policies versus people with family policies. I thought she said that.
She did, because both you and I were like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
No, the retirees, CISC required us to go to a 3-tier plan, I want to say about 3 years ago. So we have the...
I think I missed that part of the comment, because she might have misunderstood.
We have a super composite rate on our active members. Our active employees, we
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, active members is super composite rate.
There you go.
Yes, but on retirees, we were required, it was not our district decision, we were required by CISC to go to a 3-tiered rate.
And then what about the other benefits, the pension? We don't pay that as we go. That's
Not
just
to retirees, no.
Right, that's part of the big fund in Sacramento.
Correct.
And
we only pay what active employees are earning. We pay our percentage, our 8.25% towards current earnings. Once they retire, they're just drawing a pension directly from STRS, and we're out of it.
It also says here that we have to disclose our unfunded liability annually? When do we do that?
Yes, there's a evaluation that is done every 2 years. I think it'll come up next fall. I think it's September, October, when that valuation will come in to you. You'll approve it.
So what is it we have to do in the off year?
We hire a consultant, Billinger Group does it for us. And it's just an actuarially, I can't say that word, actuarial evaluation. Yeah, study. It's a study
The
that he
current
does.
value of all those
We provide
future
him the number of
liabilities.
retirees we have, their ages, and they do the study for us and give us the number, the required ARC and the total liability and all of that. I have the current one. The last one is from last year. If you want to see it, I have it.
That's on your annual statement.
Yeah, I was wondering when it's that state, I said it.
When's our annual financial statement? When is that? When do you complete that? Our annual financial statement?
The unaudited actuals?
No, what they're talking about in the text is our annual financial statement. And it's at the end of the first paragraph, under history.
Where this would show as a
Effectively, I
liability.
guess that's when we close our books, right?
It might be. Do you have something that, do you have a definition of something that matches that?
That's the study, I think, if they're talking about. Yeah, because the current one is dated July 1, 2013. So he does it in arrears. So the next one will be dated July 1, 2015. So he'll use what we have enrolled as of June 2015 in retiree group is what he'll use to base the new study on. So, yeah.
That's right.
We'll contract with him next fall.
Thank you. I know it's not easy to get all these random questions. Appreciate it.
It's fine.
It helps when you know the answer to everything.
Particularly on TV.
That's good, yeah.
So I can make a motion
Yes, please.
to approve the district's post-employment benefit plans as a pay-as-you-go.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Moving on to board protocols, our favorite topic. We've spent some time on this, but now's an opportunity to offer any additional comments, and hopefully we can get to a conclusion.
Okay, so, is it all right? I always seem to be going first. Ladies first.
You always speak very well. You focus the topic.
So I can take the pie in the face in case. So I think.
No pie.
Okay, no pie. That's right, no, too much sugar. I'll take the fruit.
It's only recommended.
Tomatoes, vegetables, okay.
Ketchup is a vegetable.
Yeah, really, we know that.
There you go. So when we had our protocols from last year or the previous protocols, and for me in January when I was looking at them, they felt very general to me, and I felt like they didn't help me figure out what this job was, and so I wanted more specifics. So I think I started us on this path of specific, but the more time I'm on the board, I'm feeling like I was trying to place maybe a job description on there, and I don't think that that's actually helpful to the board. I think it's restrictive, and so I'm going to actually just throw out there that I'm going to ask you to look at just eliminating all the specific protocols and just going with the general the way it used to be.
I would like to do that as well. I was saying also, one of my thoughts about it was I realized, I've been in this job for 4 months. It just seems like a very odd time for me to sit down and say, these are the limits and this is exactly how you should do this job that you barely know how to do. It just seems, I just don't feel comfortable doing that, and I feel like we've been working very well together. I feel like we've been very respectful of lines of communication and the kinds of things, some of which are in the document. I just don't feel, I don't feel like there's currently a need, and I just don't feel like I know the job well enough to really commit to these specifics.
I guess I'd have to say I see this document as much for the public as for us. our role is difficult enough for us to understand. And I think it's important that the public understands what we've committed to operate by and the principles and that kind of thing. So I don't have a problem with a lot of these public statements that, you know, we're committing to operate in a dignified, respectful manner. We're committed to, you know, having an open channel of communication, of you know, trying to use our time efficiently here in the board. I don't see those as job descriptions because it doesn't begin to cover what we actually do.
Right.
It's more, you know, how do we conduct ourselves and what sort of commitments are we making to each other and by corollary to the public, excuse me, to the public. But I did want to talk about one in particular, and that was number 5 under the specific. I've been spoken to, I think probably all of us have, about some concerns about that, the interpretation of that, and whether that's intended to limit other people's access or ours. And I think it's important that we emphasize that these are protocols for our conduct, not for other people's conduct. And so, for instance, if we retain this, where it says to direct information requests to the superintendent, that's for us to do that, not to channel constituents or other citizens who might want to talk to us to the superintendent, right? I think there's sort of a bit of a squishy understanding about that.
Right. I would further that by saying that while that's how the flow of information should go to operate the district, that if somebody comes to us in confidence, that should be honored, that would be more important than telling the superintendent stuff just because it says here that we should tell the superintendent stuff. That those are two separate things. That honoring a private conversation is more important than just the flow of information. I would agree. I think that, and you know, personally, I think those specific items are good. I agree with them the way I intended them, although there may be some miscommunication about that. But I'm not locked into having them as protocols. I would be comfortable with keeping the general ones, although I'm just wondering if we want to, the last 3 on the specific list seem really kind of general to me. The monitor district finances, establish annual expectations and goals, evaluate performance of the district, the superintendent and the board.
I think those are our primary responsibilities.
Responsibilities, not protocols. That's what I'm getting to. Yeah,
right.
so
Those
like,
3
that's
are,
why it sort of became, oh, I misunderstood. Yeah.
So I'm kind of thinking it would be good to keep those even if we get rid of the other specific ones.
I would agree with that. I would support that.
I'm fine with that. I think it's
But
important
then you
that,
go into like the study sessions. I mean, that's something that anybody can recommend, whether it's on protocols or not.
Right.
And I think those are things we want to do, but we don't have to put them in the protocols.
Right.
So you'd have 13 general statements?
Yeah, is that a bad number?
No, it's fine. And I'd also,
I was concerned about that when I recommended it.
not that you asked my opinion, that I was just sitting here smiling thinking, there are 2 things I was thinking when you were talking. One, I absolutely don't want to know everything that everybody says to you. Okay, that's number 1. And you know, and number 2, if I would say for sure, if someone says something to you in confidence, it needs to stay there. You know, I don't want to get involved in that. You know, this board, I would say so far, has been exemplary in asking questions to clarify, offer opinions where the question can be answered. And if you are carrying an issue to me from someone who would prefer that I didn't know who that person was, or through me, the principal, they don't want the principal to know. That's the way it ought to be. Okay? And I'm not going to spend 15 seconds worrying about, you know, the trustworthiness of you individually or the board as a whole. I just don't feel that that is something I'm going to think about or worry about. There's nothing about what you've done thus far that would cause me to say we need some specific controls over all that.
And just to make people feel comfortable that if they have a concern about the superintendent,
that's fine too.
They can tell us, and
you betcha.
We treat that as part of our supervisory responsibility.
Absolutely.
And we don't rat them out.
Oh, well, except for that one.
It's like a 1950s gang movie.
All but that person who's complaining about me.
Exactly.
And then let me just draw the eye to number 4 then. Is that, we don't need that?
Specific one?
Yeah.
The specifics?
Yeah, I mean,
that's really specific.
I'm thinking we get rid of 1 through 5 under specific, eliminate the specific category, and change 6, 7, and 8 to 11, 12, and 13.
Perfect.
I can live with that.
Okay.
That works for me. Everything else is sort of aspirational anyway. We'll get there.
So if there's a motion,
I'll move to adopt the board protocols as just suggested by Thane. That is the protocols on our sheet, which is 7.5.1, general 1 through 10, plus what are currently 6, 7, and 8 on the specific, which will now be 11, 12, and 13 on the general, and then omit the rest of the specifics.
I'll second that. Nicely
That's a
done.
mouthful.
all in favor? Aye. Great.
We'll just operationally, speaking of that, then what we'll do is we'll take down the December 2009 protocols, right? And replace them with these.
All right, moving on to the Citizens Oversight Committee. Maybe if I could ask Hank to introduce that and then move to the board members who have been participating.
Well, in the spirit of our 4x800 relay, I'm going to pass the baton to Kevin, who will then pass it to Jane. Or vice versa. Jane, you don't have to go first every time. We'll let Kevin go first this time, okay? So the board agenda page tells a bit of the story. Jane, Kevin, and I met this morning. Kevin said, boy, I'm glad I don't have to try to explain what we just talked about. And then I ran out of time and I couldn't write that anyway. So my read is this, and this is my part of the puzzle. Number one, just to pick up on what I just said, I am extremely confident that this board and this Citizens Oversight Committee, working with the administrative staff, will do a first-rate job of communicating among us. That's number one. There will be downturns, I'm sure, but predominantly not. I think it's going to be high-level conversation done the right way. One of the things that Kevin said in the meeting this morning was, we just can't try to prescribe every single way in which the COC might act. Right? You need to be flexible. I completely agree. And so the part where I will stop is to say, and I use this example this morning, and I use it often with people when I'm trying to help them resolve an issue, or I'm trying to help resolve myself, is if there are a series of options, I tend to look at things on a continuum. And let's just use that example or this or that metaphor, if you will, for this. The continuum here might be one end of the continuum, the most restrictive way in which the board would allow the Citizens Oversight Committee to operate is strictly on the basis of what is in the statute. And I won't go over all that, but there are just 4 things, and essentially what it is then is a review. It's a review group of what the board has already done and or the staff has already done. That's one end of the continuum. The other one is that, just to use an exaggeration, everything that the staff and construction management and architect group is considering would go through the COC before it gets to the board. Everything. Well, neither of those makes any sense. So what I would say then is that as I think back on what I heard myself say during the Measure J campaign in various public forums, is using the continuum now, if you just take a midpoint of that continuum, I think I'll just speak for myself, I think that it is fair for the board, it's most appropriate for the board and the COC to try to find a point on the continuum that is to the end of toward the end of the continuum from the midpoint of involving the COC in conversation. That's what I think. In a small town, people know each other, we respect each other. I think we have great people on the COC. I remember when Jane was talking about, we could add 16 people, and we just had 9. A lot of expertise. I think our staff can learn. I think the construction manager can learn. I think the architect can learn from and with people who are there, so that I would move to the end of the continuum, but not near the end, but somewhere from the midpoint to involving them. And there are lots of examples that we've spent almost an hour and a half together this morning. Lots of examples of where that line might be, depending on the issue. And I won't go into it now because it's getting late. But I think that what I just said, in varying degrees, represents Kevin's thoughts and Jane's thoughts, but I'm going to let them speak for themselves. So you're next.
I think you reflected my thoughts basically exactly. I mean, I think one of the things that I think I got a little bogged down with early on was the operative document that we would use as the sort of MOU or whatever other relationship we have with the Citizens Oversight Committee. But as we talked today, we realized that the law itself is relatively broad, and we used, for example, the Conejo Valley, which pretty much tracks the law. That is the law that sets up the Oversight Committee, and in it, there's some pretty broad language about what they might or might not, engage in. I think we all agree. One thing you haven't brought up, I think we all agree that we want, certainly at the right level, prospective involvement. That is, involvement before the fact. That I think all of us committed, even during the campaign, that this was not going to be a post hoc rubber stamp that says, oh, hey guys, this is all the stuff we did. Hopefully you're okay with it. That said, I think we all also agree that we have such limited administrative resources in our district that we can't certainly allow this to become, a full-time job for 15 administrators to fulfill the needs of a Citizens Oversight Committee. So, but I think we're all kind of on the same page. I think now what we need is to fill the room with the Oversight Committee, and I think I would like us to present to them a singular proposed document, being the Conejo version. We've got one now that has the appropriate OHI references, and then just talk about, well, how's this going to work? They've asked us during the process of interviews, well, how often will we meet? I think the Conejo version, the one that I would adopt, suggests, I think, as a minimum quarterly, and then of course some of it will be driven by the amount of activity and how much we're doing, and how the work that we're doing falls into categories.
And that document also helps, it helps them, they need to set up a sort of a, committee foreman who speaks for the group when they come forward. They have, it really sets up well.
They have opportunities to speak at our meetings. Right. It's all in there.
Sort of standing, I think we had a standing spot on our agendas. They didn't have to fill it all the time, but we knew that they might come.
Weirdly, Michael, it's your chair. I don't know why that.
I'm sorry. I should move.
No, it's actually not true. Anyway, Kathy found a number of documents. That was one. I agree with Kevin. It became, I think, the focus of our conversation. Obviously, I'll send it out to you. Well, take a look at it. There'll be time between the time I send it to you, which will be this Friday or early next week, and the time we have the meeting. Right, but we want to move ahead. Kathy, I know you've been waiting, to start setting up that committee of 14 people plus staff. But so we want to be
right. So we're being asked to approve text, but we don't have.
No, I don't know.
Right? So should we defer that to our next?
Well, I think when I
received the report.
I asked you to receive the report.
Right.
Okay. Discussion options presented. Approve text. Right.
And approve the text.
And on the text. Okay. The text will be the Conejo thing. But I didn't want to give that to you like at 5 o'clock. So look at it. I think I would recommend you take that part of the recommendation out, okay? But that what I would hope we would be doing tonight, the four of you, if you feel comfortable, you receive the report of 3 of us, the options we talked about, and I think what we're saying is what we said. I'll say it again, okay? That, you know, we want engagement of the group more than what people might think it would be, which is just after the fact. But actually the document, and it just happens to be one district's view, but Kevin's right, a lot of that stuff is in the broad language of the legislation. I think when you read it, you'll say, boy, there's a lot of elbow room there, you know. And then I think if you just trust, you know, good people to do good things, it almost always works. So my recommendation is you receive the committee report. I'll send you the Conejo document. Kevin feels good about it. You feel good about it? I do. So we're recommending that be our blueprint, if you want to call it that. So that'll be the text, if you can just sort of approve it going forward. And that it will prepare the COC members for the upcoming meeting. And Kathy, now it's on you to get us together.
So would you be sending that document also to the members?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no question. All 14 people will get it. And, you know, they may say, well, we'll see what they say. But that's what we, in this room, will say that document's perfect or we'd like to adjust.
And that's a public meeting?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, you 5 plus them. And actually, the meetings of the COC are public. And so when they meet, it's public.
So when are you shooting for the first?
Oh, good question. May.
Yeah, mid-May.
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 Before Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Before Memorial Day. We have space. I mean, we have a whole month between now and we have 31 days, right? It's May. 31 days between now and our next board meeting. So we have, no, it's 5. It's May 5th. We have 20 some odd days, 26, 27. We have lots of time over the next May weeks. So the week of, what's the 4th, 11th or 18th, right? The week of the 11th or 18th, probably the 18th by the time you get it all done. So sort of halfway between tonight and the June 2nd meeting.
Well, I just want to thank Kevin and Jane. I think you guys have done an extraordinary amount of work on this, and it sounds to me like you really captured all of the stuff that we've discussed in terms of our priorities for this committee, and I really want to thank you, because I know this is not easy, and I know it's taken a lot of time, but it is one of the more important things that we will be doing, and so I think you're really getting us started well.
I second that. Just the interviews. Beyond that, just the interviews took time.
Well, leading these meetings, I don't get to second things, but I want to second that.
That's a good thing. It's not a formal second. It's a second of appreciation.
Exactly. No, the time you put into this and the thought and expertise, I think is fantastic. I really appreciate it. I'm just thinking what I would feel most comfortable with is receiving the report, having you go ahead, prepare the text, have the committee take a look at it, but then have us actually approve the document at our next meeting.
Okay, sure. Well, because we'll have the meeting in between.
Right.
And there are likely to be some adjustments.
Yeah, so that gives us a chance to actually look at.
So just approve by sending it out.
Approve you're sending it out as a working document.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sure Jane agrees with me. We'd also like to thank Hank for all of his input and work on this. I think it's, basically we're out, 3 people being on virtually the exact same page after quite a lot of work on a very complicated subject actually speaks a lot, I think, for all of our effort.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was fun. It was fun to do. It really was.
No, that's great. And I love the transparency that this is creating. I was telling Hank earlier today, when the school board made decisions about spending money on a bond issue many years ago, I actually came to a board meeting and was complaining about how they were spending money. So
You'll be back.
Full circle.
Any ideas?
He'll be in a wig.
Exactly.
Bane Fipple from Ojai.
Anyway, so that's great. Next, so do we have a motion to receive the report and send out the text as a working document?
I'll let you guys.
No, so moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Approval of the 6th triennial update of the county plan.
This one was exciting, I know.
Yes.
20-page document, all the districts are asked to approve it. It is our way of staying engaged with Gateway as an option for any students we have expelled if we feel that's the best place to assign students.
And dealing with these problems is incredibly important. The document's incredibly boring.
It is.
But we need to approve it.
Well, you know how we do it.
Yeah, so if we can have a motion to approve.
I'll motion to approve the 6th triennial update of the county plan.
Right.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Superintendent's report.
Oh, 8 o'clock. I always adjust my report depending on how late it is. It's on the later side. You know, I guess the best issue I would want to address right now is I can't do better than this. I just can't. I wish I could come up with something. And you all know how much I love interscholastic athletics, and I've been involved with it my whole life. I have never, one time. I was one time involved in another district where what we did was the best in the country, clearly because it was actually, it either won the thing by something like this, going to Penn Relays, or it was judged by a very legitimate organization to be the best of what we did, okay? And, thank you to Kevin for, really focusing all of our attention on this. I mean, we all knew it was happening, but like Ed said, it was just this evolving thing. It was just so cool, and I didn't know that you guys had all this Roadrunner, experience, so that's fun when you get to hug, the coach and all that. But what just great kids, and it was just absolutely serendipitous that I was sitting in Greg's office talking about something that had nothing to do with the Norfolk Express or had nothing to do with the upcoming pep rally, and in they walked and just couldn't find nicer kids, just couldn't. And what I'm hoping, and I just want to sort of make a pitch here. Actually, we should have done it today, but I'll pick it up. I'm hoping that the city council, right, will do something. I'm hoping that people just realize how remarkable it is. I mean, if we had 4 times as many students in the high school, it would still be remarkable, all right? Because I'm telling you, it just rarely happens. Sometimes you get an individual, who might be the best at something. But to have a relay team that emerges from a small high school, that has, certainly had some success in track, but nothing magical. It's not like Oaks Christian football or something like that. It just evolved, which is sort of the greatest thing. I love the way Ed described it, right? He said, you guys could have jumped ship, didn't do it.
And the community donated money for them to pay for their airfare.
Oh, absolutely.
Hotels,
followed all that, and I don't know, what the numbers were, and I don't care. So sometimes you just can't really do any better than that. I mean, we're doing some pretty cool things right now. We're working hard to get our stuff organized for next year. You asked about staffing, have some issues there. We have some personnel matters that we're dealing with, some of which are pretty complex, all of which I can't talk about. But, this to me is just remarkable. And I would like to sort of say that my superintendent's report just applauded them every which way I could.
Well, I would just say, your comments make me almost misty-eyed over the whole. I got to tell you, I think right now there are just a lot of really great things going on in our school district. I'm super proud to be in a position to help, with the way I can.
One more thing I'm saying. So it actually, it relates to this, okay? So, and, you know, again, you know, every person, you know, who's been around whatever organization or type of work for 40 plus years, as I have, you know, you have lots of different experiences in a lot of different places, unless you happen to be in one place the whole time, which is pretty unusual. And, you know, I made the comment that I made about the pep rally, you know, and it wasn't a throwaway, I'm telling you, okay? I've been in some pep rallies, I couldn't, after 3 minutes, I couldn't wait for the next 40 minutes, you know, just get it over with. You know, there was no spirit, the kids are throwing, you know, paper airplanes and stuff like that. Don't ever do it again. In fact, I told one high school principal, if you have to do it again, don't invite me because I'm not coming. You know, it was just a bad experience. These are so much fun. The kids are so into it. You know, whether, you know, there's a lot of stuff where they run around and all the, you know, the classes stand up one at a time and cheer. But I have to say, and just picking up what Kevin just said, that that pep rally, one of the reasons why it goes so well is because there is a real spirit at that high school where people care about and for each other. For example, and Addie Smith is maybe the best example I can think of, because she's like our head cheerleader who isn't out there cheering. You know, she's in the front row. I mean, every time I go to a sporting event, you know, she's there holding up a sign, you know, way to go, you know, whoever, McKenna, Lawson and volleyball or whatever. But what you see is, you know, a good percentage of one team coming to root for another team. See a lot of that, okay? And it's not because the coach said you need to be there. It's because the kids want to be there. And, you know, that you don't see that all the time. And when you go to a dance concert, okay, you'll hear the kids cheering for the next group, right? You know, which they really shouldn't do, but they do it anyway. You know, they say, you know, go Jane, or whatever it might be, and they do that. So there's a lot of support, intra-school support, that happens in our highest age school. And I give huge credit to not just Greg and Dave and Kim, because I know I've given them a lot of credit. Obviously the faculty, many of whom preceded the three of them in their administrative roles. I give Dan Music a huge amount of credit for, you know, the school I inherited, if you will. He was already, you know, he was the chief cheerleader. If you go out there and you see, you know, they have the stencil of him with a megaphone, right? That's who he was. He was the chief cheerleader for the high school, and he pulled it off. There's some high school principals that don't do that so well. I didn't do it because I was quite a bit younger, but I wasn't very good at that. I was a big supporter, but I wasn't good at that. And, you know, Dan is good, Greg's great, and, you know, it's a place I would want to send my son or daughter if I had to do it again. And it has nothing to do with whether we want to really or not. It's just I think it's a really great place. I do. That's not to diminish any of the other schools. I'm just saying our high school is a great place. That's my report.
Great. I think we should quickly mention that at our last meeting, Hank and I were asked to meet with the city.
You do that. I was going to do that. I got off. You do it. Good. No, I said I was going to have you do it.
Yeah, well, we were both going to do it.
No,
so
you did. I forgot.
Yeah. So we met today. We had a very positive conversation.
You met with the mayor.
We met with the mayor and the city.
Sabaro and Rob, yeah.
Right. And I put together, discussed a loose structure of how we would have a joint meeting. The takeaway is they were going to write that up, then circulate it to all of us so we can see that, and hopefully schedule a meeting for mid-June. We would bring some issues we want to talk about. They would bring some issues they want to talk about.
But in general, okay, so now I remember what I was going to say. Got off on the kids, which I, you know, rather.
No, that's actually.
Well, it's better. It's better. But anyway, so a couple things. Number one, we're doing this. They initiated. Give them credit. Okay, so they're going to host it. They'll be there. That's number one.
Way better video.
I said that. Well, it's a higher quality and it moves.
You get close-ups, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And we are running live right now.
Oh, good to hear.
I'll tell you.
Okay,
yeah, we have confirmation.
We didn't ask also this time to check it out. Okay, so they're going to host it, and it'll obviously be video there. we talked about the tape, which you said, and we also sort of said an hour and a half, right? About an hour and a half we're thinking about. Sort of in the 5:30 to 7 range with maybe a 5 o'clock little social get-together, say hello to people to each other, something like that. And that we pretty much figured that we might be lucky or fortunate to each have 2 issues and 4 issues in 90 minutes with conversation. So, you know, we would pick 2 and they would pick 2. I was laughing about this one we kept talking about today, but anyhow, so you know, they would go, they're the host, they would go first, or maybe they'll let the visitors go first, I don't know, whatever. So someone will go.
If we're winning after the second inning,
yeah,
they still get to.
As long as there are no extra innings, I don't care. So anyway, one would go first, the other, so back and forth over 4 issues, 2 each, right? Is that what we did? So that was the structure.
Yes.
And we have some ideas about what our 2 issues might be, and they have some ideas, and obviously you'll all participate before we finalize what those issues are.
Will we discuss those at the next meeting?
Yeah, June 2nd, be on the agenda.
Yeah. So we should have the details from the city, the invitation, the time, and the structure that we can discuss at our June meeting prior to.
And Rob, he'll do that. I'll work with him. Okay, that was it.
Terrific. The consent calendar. If there are any questions?
Yeah, I don't have any.
Okay.
All right, then a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we are?
Don't need this closed session. We're done.
We're adjourned.